The instant I hit the floor, a white-hot pain tore through my left leg. That sound, that horrible cracking sound that seemed to come from somewhere deep inside my body. The linoleum was freezing against my cheek. I really tried to push myself up, but my arms had turned to water. Oh God! I heard myself whisper, the words echoing through the silent house. The canvas shopping bag had tumbled beside me, spilling everything. Oranges rolling in every direction. One had burst open beneath me, its juice spreading across the white floor like blood. Staring at that orange stain, I felt the room start to spin. I need help, I said out loud, my trembling fingers digging into my jacket pocket where I could feel my phone. Thank God I hadn't bothered changing when I got back from the store. My phone was there. My contacts list appeared. Marcus's name sat at the very top. My thumb hovered over it, hesitating. Just 8 days ago, we'd argued about his daughter Emma's schooling, and I could still see the expression on his wife Patricia's face. Cold, dismissive. But this wasn't the time for pride. I pressed call. The phone rang, and rang, and rang. So many times I was certain it would go to voicemail. Then, someone picked up. Mom. Marcus's voice sounded distant, distracted. Marcus, I think I broke my leg. I fell. I can't get up, I said, trying so hard to keep the agony out of my voice. But on those last words, I couldn't help sucking in a sharp gasp. The line went completely silent. Then, I heard rustling, like the phone being covered, but not well enough. Not nearly well enough. As I heard it, clear as crystal, my daughter-in-law Patricia's voice. Don't. Just let her deal with it herself. We need that spare bedroom for my sister when she moves here. My breath stopped in my throat. Several seconds of dead air followed. Then the line disconnected. Just that flat tone of an ended call buzzing in my ear. I lay there on my back, staring up at a brown water stain on the ceiling from that leak in the bathroom upstairs. It suddenly looked like a twisted, mocking grin, laughing at my foolishness. 71 years of life. 33 years of backbreaking work. All of it. For that one sentence. Tears burned behind my eyes. But I pushed them down. Margaret. What did you expect? I said to the empty room. Ever since Richard died 6 years ago, this house had stopped feeling like a home. After Marcus married. Especially after my granddaughter Emma was born. I really thought I'd finally experienced the joy of a complete family. Instead, I slowly became an inconvenience. The pain in my left leg was getting worse. Sharper. I realized I couldn't wait any longer. Hey Siri, I called out, waking the assistant on my phone. Hello, came that gentle, robotic female voice. Call emergency services. Calling emergency services now. While waiting for the ambulance, I tried dragging myself toward the living room couch. At least there were cushions. It wouldn't be so hard and cold. Every single inch I moved sent fire shooting through my leg. Cold sweat poured from my forehead into my eyes, stinging so badly I had to keep them squeezed shut. But I gritted my teeth and pulled myself forward inch by agonizing inch. By the time my shoulders finally touched the base of the couch, I was gasping like I just climbed a mountain. The paramedics arrived fast. When they knocked, I gathered every bit of strength I had left to shout, "It's open. Come in." 2 young people in uniform rushed through the door and seeing me, immediately dropped to their knees beside me. "Ma'am, how did this happen?" the young woman asked while wrapping the blood pressure cuff around my arm. "Slipped on some water," I answered briefly, not wanting to explain more. "Is there family here? Anyone else home?" the young man asked, looking around the empty house. "I live alone," I said, and my voice sounded so calm it surprised even me. As they were lifting me onto the stretcher, my neighbor from next door, Mrs. Chun, came back from her shopping and froze at the scene unfolding. "Margaret, what happened?" "Took a fall. Might have fractured something." I managed a weak smile for her. "Should I call Marcus?" Mrs. Chun asked, genuine worry in her eyes. "No. Don't bother him at work." I shook my head. "The hospital has staff. I'll be fine." Mrs. Chun looked like she wanted to argue, but just sighed instead. She gathered my scattered keys and phone, tucking them into my purse. You call me if you need anything. You hear me? The moment those ambulance doors closed, I finally let the tears come, but I wiped them away just as fast. What good would crying do? I told myself. Margaret, what haven't you survived in this life? When I was younger, I worked night shifts at the garment factory, raising Marcus completely on my own. When Richard got sick, I stayed awake for 4 days straight. This was just one more mountain to climb. The hospital results came back quickly. A fractured hip, requiring immediate surgery. Ma'am, we'll need a family member to sign the surgical consent forms, the young doctor with thick glasses said. Can't I sign them myself? I asked. Technically, yes. But you'll need someone to look after you post-surgery. I'll hire someone, I said firmly, taking the form and signing my name. My handwriting was steadier than usual, the pen almost tearing through the paper. The surgery went well, but when the anesthesia faded, the pain crashed over me like a wave. I lay in that hospital bed staring at nothing, listening to the elderly woman in the next bed being fussed over by her 3 children. My chest felt hollow. When the nurse came to change my bandages, I asked her to help me contact a home care service. A middle-aged woman named Rosa arrived within the hour. She had kind eyes and capable hands. Don't you worry about a thing, ma'am, Rosa said while gently wiping my face with a warm cloth. I've cared for many seniors with fractures. Whatever you need, just tell me. I nodded, suddenly feeling exhausted beyond measure. I closed my eyes and pretended to sleep, mostly so no one would see the tears threatening to fall again. I woke sometime in the middle of the night. The only light came from the hallway, a faint glow seeping through the small window in the door. I fumbled for my phone. The screen said 3:17 in the morning. One new message, sent by Marcus 3 hours earlier. Mom, my phone died earlier. Did you need something? I stared at those words, and suddenly, I laughed. A bitter, chest-aching laugh. This was the son I had raised for 43 years, too lazy to even create a believable excuse. I didn't reply. I put the phone back on the nightstand, and with the help of the pain medication, fell back into a deep dreamless sleep. In my dreams, I was back when Marcus was small. He had a terrible fever, and I carried him on my back for over 2 miles to reach the hospital. He whispered in my ear, Mama, when I grow up, I'll carry you too. I woke up with a wet pillowcase. The morning after surgery, pale sunlight crept through a gap in the curtains, casting a thin golden line across my hospital bed. I watched dust particles dancing in the light, counting the drops falling from my 4 bag. 1 drop, 2 drops, 3 drops. Mom! The door burst open and Marcus rushed in, completely out of breath. He wore a wrinkled suit, his tie hanging crooked, a thin film of sweat on his forehead. He carried a plastic bag of fruit, the handles crackling loudly. I heard you fell. Why didn't you tell me right away? He set the fruit on my bedside table, and a pear rolled out, spinning twice before stopping. I slowly turned my head to look at him. The pain made even this small movement difficult. My son, 43 years old, fine lines spreading from the corners of his eyes, his hairline creeping back more than it was last year. His eyes darted around, unable to meet mine. Phone died, I asked quietly, my voice still hoarse from the anesthesia. Marcus's face turned deep red. He looked down, straightening his tie with trembling fingers. I was in back-to-back meetings last night. The phone really did die. I only saw your missed calls this morning. I didn't call out his lie. 71 years of living had taught me that some lies, when exposed, become thorns that lodge forever in the softest parts of your heart. The doctor says I need to stay here a week for observation, I said. Marcus finally looked up, his gaze landing on my casted left leg. You'll need care after you're discharged. Patricia and I discussed it. We can hire a caregiver. I already hired one, I interrupted, pointing to Rosa who was organizing supplies near the privacy curtain. $200 a day. Marcus visibly relaxed, his shoulders dropping. Oh, that's good then. Don't worry about the cost. Cost? That word stung. Since Richard died, the contempt from Marcus and Patricia had grown more obvious, and it always circled back to money. And the house. This two-bedroom condo in a desirable neighborhood was what they really wanted. Marcus, I said, slowly pushing myself up. Rosa immediately came over to adjust the bed. I was thinking of calling my old friend, Arthur Williams, the attorney, to ask about some things regarding a will. Do you have his contact information? Marcus's expression froze instantly. A will? Mom. Don't be ridiculous. It's just a minor fracture. When you reach a certain age, you need to plan these things, I said calmly, taking the glass of water Rosa handed me and sipping slowly. Is Arthur still at that downtown firm? I'll look it up for you. Marcus pulled out his phone, his fingers swiping frantically across the screen. Mom, I have another meeting at the office. I need to go. I'll visit tonight. He practically ran from the room. Forgetting the pear that had rolled from the bag, Rosa quietly picked up the pear, wiped it with a tissue, and placed it within my reach. Your son seems very busy. I smiled but didn't answer. Yes, so busy he couldn't help his mother with a broken hip. That afternoon at 2 o'clock, an unexpected visitor arrived. My old friend Arthur Williams, now a distinguished attorney. He wore an expensive suit. His hair had gone mostly gray, but his eyes were sharp and alert. He carried a bouquet of white carnations. Margaret, look at you. How many years has it been? His warm voice made the woman in the next bed turn to look. Marcus called me. Said you urgently needed to discuss a will. I had Rosa raise my bed fully, and gestured for Arthur to take the chair beside me. Arthur. To be completely honest, I do need to ask you something. Once Rosa had left to refill my water pitcher, I lowered my voice. My condo. If something were to happen to me, does Marcus have any right to sell it? Arthur adjusted his glasses and took a leather notebook from his briefcase. Whose name is on the title? Richard's and mine originally. After he passed, I had it changed to just my name. Then Marcus has absolutely no right to dispose of it, Arthur said definitively. Not unless you specifically leave it to him, or it goes through normal inheritance procedures. But you have complete authority to sell it or transfer it to anyone else right now. I nodded, feeling a weight lift slightly from my chest. If I were to write a will leaving the condo to my granddaughter Emma, but specify that she can only inherit it when she turns 28, is that legally possible? Absolutely. Arthur made notes in his book. You can establish a trust, designate a trustee to manage the property until Emma reaches that age. He paused, studying my face. Margaret, is something wrong at home? I looked out the window at the maple tree swaying in the breeze. Sunlight filtered through its leaves, creating dancing shadows on the pavement. Arthur, do you remember back when we were young, working at the garment factory? That floor supervisor who used to harass the women workers. I remember. Didn't you and several others report him to management? We did, I said, turning back to face him, smiling faintly. The one thing I cannot tolerate in this life is a bully. Arthur nodded thoughtfully and didn't press further. We talked about old colleagues for a while, and before leaving, he handed me his business card, telling me to call any time to finalize the legal documents. That evening, Marcus returned with Patricia and Emma. Patricia wore a designer dress, her makeup flawless. The moment she entered, she covered her nose with a tissue, as if the hospital air itself was offensive. Mom, feeling better? She stood at the foot of my bed, deliberately keeping distance from my injured leg. Marcus mentioned you wanted to create a will. I noticed Marcus shoot her a sharp, warning glare. Emma hid behind her parents, her backpack still on, eyes glued to her phone screen, not looking up once. When you reach my age, you need to plan ahead, I said evenly. Then I waved at Emma. Emma, come let Grandma see you. You've grown so tall. Emma reluctantly shuffled closer, eyes never leaving her phone. Hi, Grandma. How's school going? I tried to touch her head, but she subtly pulled away. It's fine, she mumbled, then quickly retreated behind her parents. Patricia placed a bag of fruit on the nightstand. More fruit. For my birthday last month. They'd also brought fruit. It ended up molding in my refrigerator. Mom, you know property values keep climbing, Patricia said suddenly. Her eyes scanning everything except me. My sister is getting married. And her fiancé insists on buying a place. Is that so? I pretended not to understand. Taking the medication Rosa handed me. Mom, you should rest. We'll visit another day, Marcus cut in quickly. Grabbing Patricia's arm and pulling her toward the door. Emma trailed behind them like a small shadow. After they left, a hospital social worker named Miss Liu came to check on my situation. She was a gentle woman in her 50s with a soft voice. Mrs. Chun, will you need assistance after discharge? Is there anyone at home to help? My children work very demanding jobs, I said with a smile. I've arranged for professional care. Miss Liu made notes on her form. Your son seems very attentive. Yes, I said, gazing out at the darkening evening sky. Very busy, but very attentive. That night, as Rosa was helping me with a bed bath, she suddenly said, Ma'am, you're remarkably strong. I was surprised. Why do you say that? I've cared for many elderly patients, she said, wringing out the washcloth. Most of them, when they're in pain and their families aren't around, they complain constantly, feel sorry for themselves. You're different. I stared at the ceiling, thinking back to those years working triple shifts at the factory, remembering staying awake for 4 straight days when Richard was dying, recalling the struggle of raising Marcus alone. You know, I said softly, in the end, the only person you can truly depend on is yourself. Rosa's hand paused for a moment, then continued gently washing my arm. Ma'am, if you don't mind, I can continue caring for you after discharge. I live in the neighborhood right next to yours. I turned to look at her. This simple woman with countryside roots, her eyes honest and warm. That would be wonderful. I'll pay you the standard rate. No rush, she smiled. We can discuss it after your leg heals. That night, I dreamed. I was standing in my empty condo. All the furniture had vanished, except for one family portrait on the wall. In the photo, Marcus was just a little boy, smiling so innocently. On discharge day, it was Rosa who handled all the paperwork. Marcus sent a text saying a critical deadline came up at work. He couldn't get away. Patricia didn't even bother responding. Careful now, ma'am, Rosa said, carrying my bag in one hand and supporting me with the other. Slowly navigating the hospital entrance steps. The early summer sun beat down mercilessly, making me slightly dizzy. Rosa hailed a taxi, carefully photographing the license plate and texting it to herself. You have to be cautious these days, she explained, especially for seniors with limited mobility. The car drove through familiar streets. The maple trees lining the road had grown their full summer foliage, leaves rustling in the wind. I remembered this time last year, walking this same route with Richard. He always loved collecting the fallen seed pods, saying the little nuts inside tasted wonderful when roasted. We're here, Rosa's voice brought me back. In the elevator. My heart began beating inexplicably faster. As I turned the key in the lock, I heard television sounds from inside. The door opened. The living room was complete chaos. Piles of unfamiliar clothing covered the couch. The coffee table was buried under takeout containers and snack wrappers. Emma's toys and school supplies were scattered everywhere. My hand-embroidered cushion lay discarded on the floor. A clear, dirty footprint stamped across it. What on earth? Rosa stood in the doorway, stunned, leaning on my cane. I slowly walked toward the master bedroom, the room Richard and I had shared for over 25 years. The door hung slightly open. I pushed it gently. The bed had unfamiliar sheets and blankets. The dresser was cluttered with Patricia's cosmetics. My treasured old photo albums were shoved onto the bottom shelf of the bookcase in the corner. The closet door hung partially open, revealing Marcus's suits and Patricia's dresses hanging inside. They've taken over your room, Rosa whispered behind me. I didn't answer. I turned and walked toward what used to be Emma's room. The door stood open. My clothes were piled haphazardly on the bed. My personal belongings were stuffed into several cardboard boxes, lids not even properly closed. "Ma'am!" Rosa's voice shook with anger. I raised my hand to stop her, leaning heavily on my cane. I made my way slowly to the balcony. My plants, the few pots of orchids Richard had loved most, had withered from neglect. Their dry leaves drooped pathetically. "It's all right," I said quietly. "Just help me organize the guest room for now." Rosa spent the entire afternoon helping me clean and reorganize. She carefully refolded my clothes and arranged my belongings properly. I sat in a chair by the window, watching this woman nearly 30 years younger than me, working so hard on my behalf, feeling a complex mixture of emotions. Late afternoon, Emma came home from school. She was clearly startled to see me. "Grandma, you're out of the hospital." "Yes," I forced a smile. "Did you miss Grandma?" Emma pouted, tossed her backpack on the couch, and said, "Dad texted he's working late tonight. Mom went out with my aunt. She told me to order delivery." "You don't need to order anything," I said. "Grandma will cook for you." "But your leg." Emma looked skeptically at my cane. "I can cook sitting down," I said. I hobbled toward the kitchen. "What would you like to eat?" "Whatever," Emma said, already pulling out her phone to play a game. Not even looking up. The kitchen was a disaster. The sink overflowed with unwashed dishes. The refrigerator was crammed with takeout containers. I managed to find a few usable ingredients and started preparing dinner. Rosa wanted to help, but I shook my head. "You head home for today. Come back tomorrow." I wanted time alone with my granddaughter. Dinner was simple. Scrambled eggs with peppers, stir-fried cabbage, a bowl of egg drop soup with seaweed. I brought the dishes to the dining table and called Emma to eat. She dragged herself over eventually. She took one bite of the cabbage and immediately frowned. "It's too bland. Grandma used less salt." "It's healthier," I said, ladling soup into her bowl. Emma forced down a few more bites, then put down her chopsticks. "I'm full." Without another word, she disappeared into her room, which was now my room. As I was slowly clearing the dishes, I suddenly heard Emma on her phone in the other room. "It's so annoying. Grandma's cooking is terrible." "Yeah, and she took my room. My mom says when she dies, the apartment will be ours anyway." My hand trembled. A plate slipped from my grasp and shattered on the floor. The next morning, I called Emma's homeroom teacher, Mrs. Thompson. "Mrs. Thompson, hello. This is Emma Miller's grandmother." "Yes. Hello, Mrs. Chun. How can I help you?" I wanted to ask, how has Emma been doing in school lately? Mrs. Thompson hesitated. "Mrs. Chun, Emma has been struggling to focus in class recently. Her homework quality has dropped significantly. And last week, she got into an altercation with another student." "A fight? Why?" "From what I understand, it was because the other child made a comment about her parents not showing respect to their elders." My heart clenched tight. After hanging up, I found Emma's class schedule and saw she had physical education that afternoon. I asked Rosa to go to the market for me to buy some special ingredients. I carefully prepared a bento lunch for Emma. Rice balls shaped like little bears, fruit cut into flower shapes, her favorite honey-glazed chicken drumsticks. "Ma'am, your hip isn't fully healed. Don't push yourself," Rosa said, watching me with concern. "I'm managing," I said, wiping sweat from my forehead. "Could you deliver this to her school for me? Just tell her. Tell her it's a special lunch from Grandma." When Emma came home that afternoon, her expression had changed. She lingered near the kitchen doorway, then whispered, "Thanks for the lunch, Grandma." Warmth spread through my chest. "Did you enjoy it?" "My friends all said it looked really amazing," she said, a rare smile appearing on her face before she quickly hid it. I'm going to do homework now." From that day forward, I prepared a special lunch for Emma every single day, sometimes with cartoon characters, sometimes with her favorite foods. And Rosa delivered it to the school each time. Gradually, the first thing Emma did when she got home wasn't to hide in her room anymore, but to come to the kitchen to see what I was making. A week later, Emma came to my room on her own. Grandma, can I ask you something? Of course. I put down the book I was reading. Why? Why are you so nice to me? Even though my parents. She looked down, her voice trailing off into silence. I patted the space beside me on the bed, gesturing for her to sit. Because you're my granddaughter. Emma, Grandma loves you. That has nothing to do with your parents. Emma sat quietly for a long time. Then she suddenly said, the other night, I heard Mom and Dad arguing. Mom said as soon as your hip is better, they're going to put you in a nursing home. I had expected this day would come eventually, but hearing it confirmed still felt like ice water dumped over my head. Grandma. Emma looked up, her eyes glistening with tears. I won't let them do that. I stroked her hair. This time, she didn't pull away. Don't worry. Grandma has a plan. The next day, I contacted a real estate agency near the neighborhood and scheduled an appraisal for the condo. Then I made a list for Rosa, asking her to help me organize my valuable possessions and important documents. Ma'am, what is all this for? Rosa looked at the list, which included the property deed, bank statements, and my jewelry box, and she hesitated. Preparing for what may come, I said simply. That afternoon, Patricia's sister Karen showed up unexpectedly with a young man she introduced as her fiancé. The woman wore heavy makeup and started looking around the moment she walked through the door. Hello, ma'am, she said perfunctorily, then excitedly grabbed her fiancé's arm. The master bedroom gets such beautiful light. Could we knock down that balcony wall? Of course we could, the young man said smugly. Once my future sister-in-law gets the deed transferred to us, we can renovate however we want. I sat on the sofa, watching them point and plan throughout my house as if I were already dead. A faint smile crossed my face. That night, I heard fierce arguing coming from the master bedroom. Leaning on my cane, I quietly approached and heard Patricia's shrill voice through the door. You can't even handle your own mother. If she doesn't die soon, my sister can't get married. And I'm done with you. Marcus's voice was low and muffled, but his tone was clearly one of surrender. I slowly made my way back to my room. From the nightstand drawer, I took out a small notebook and wrote 3 words on a fresh page. It's time. Mrs. Chun, your hip hasn't completely healed. You don't need to rush into finalizing a will. Arthur's young assistant, Mr. Wong, looked at me with genuine concern. I feel much better now, I said, adjusting my cane and settling into a chair at the notary's office. Today was Thursday. I had used the excuse of a follow-up medical appointment to come here alone. Arthur was already waiting. Several documents spread neatly across the table. Everything is prepared, Arthur said, sliding a document toward me. According to your instructions, the property will be inherited by your granddaughter Emma Miller, but managed through a trust until she reaches 28 years old. Your son and daughter-in-law will have residency rights only, not the authority to sell or transfer the property. I carefully read every single word. The will also specified that if Emma were to pass away before inheriting, the property would be donated to the city's children's hospital. And this, Arthur handed me another document, is an exclusive listing agreement for the property. Only you have the authority to revoke it. My hand was steady as I signed my name, without the slightest hesitation. After signing all the documents, I felt a strange sense of relief, as if a crushing weight I'd carried for years had finally been lifted from my shoulders. The sun was brilliant when I left the notary's office. Instead of heading straight home, I had the taxi driver take me to the community senior center. The young woman at the reception desk was very welcoming. Ma'am, what activities are you interested in? We have calligraphy, painting, dance. Do you have public speaking classes? I asked. When I was younger, I participated in a recitation competition at the factory and won second place. We do. Classes are Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. Actually, there's one happening right now. Would you like to observe? I nodded and followed her to a classroom on the second floor. More than 20 seniors were practicing vocal exercises with an instructor. I sat in the back row, listening to their strong, confident voices, and suddenly felt a long-lost sense of vitality stirring inside me. After class, I registered immediately and also signed up for a watercolor painting class and a smartphone technology workshop. You're quite progressive, ma'am, the receptionist said with an approving smile. Many seniors can barely use their phones. You're never too old to learn, I said as I paid the fees, carefully placing the class schedule in my wallet. On my way home, I received a call from Rosa. Ma'am, your son has been calling looking for you. He said you weren't answering your phone. I had it on silent mode. Didn't hear it ring, I said. Tell him I went for a walk in the park after my doctor's appointment. I'm heading home now. After hanging up, I had the driver stop at the supermarket near my building. I bought some groceries. While checking out, I spotted Karen and her fiancé by the frozen food section, selecting ice cream. They were wrapped around each other, completely oblivious to me standing just a few feet away. I've already figured out the design aesthetic. The girl's excited voice drifted over. We'll knock down a wall in the master bedroom to create a suite. And I want an entire wall of mirrors in the walk-in closet. Don't worry, her fiancé said, pinching her cheek playfully. My future sister-in-law said we'll only have to wait 6 months, maximum. I calmly paid for my groceries and walked out of the supermarket with my bags. The sun felt warm against my skin, but inside, my heart was encased in ice. When I got home, Marcus was there, which was unusual. He was pacing back and forth in the living room. Mom, where have you been? He asked, approaching me with forced concern in his voice. What did the doctor say about your recovery? It's progressing well, I said, setting the grocery bags in the kitchen. I should be off the cane in another month or so. That's good. That's really good, Marcus said, wringing his hands, clearly wanting to say something more. I poured myself a glass of water and slowly sat down on the sofa. If you have something to say, just say it. Well, it's like this, Marcus sat across from me. Patricia's sister is getting married. The young woman's family is quite well off, and they're insisting on a new home. So we were thinking. Thinking what? I looked him directly in the eyes. You're getting older, and maintaining such a large place is difficult, Marcus said, avoiding my gaze. Why don't you move in with us? And we can transfer the condo deed to Karen. They'll pay a portion of the value, of course. How much? Marcus clearly hadn't expected me to ask so directly. He stammered. Half the market value. Perhaps. We're family. After all, a 2-bedroom condo in a prime neighborhood in this city, I said slowly, deliberately. Current market value is at least $700,000. You want to sell it to your sister-in-law for $350,000. Mom! Marcus's face flushed deep red. Patricia only has one sister. And I only have one son, I interrupted. But you only have one mother. Marcus's face went from red to pale as snow. What are you trying to say? Nothing, I said, standing up carefully. I'm tired. I need to rest. Dinner. Patricia, for the first time in months, actually cooked several dishes herself. She kept putting food on my plate. Emma watched her parents, then looked at me, her eyes full of confusion and worry. Mom, Patricia said with a strained smile. Did Marcus talk to you about Karen's situation? He did, I said, putting down my chopsticks. And I don't agree. Patricia's face immediately darkened. Why not? Don't you think it's wasteful for you to live in such a large place alone? I don't. Are you always this selfish? Patricia's voice rose sharply. My sister is waiting for this apartment to get married. What does your sister's marriage have to do with me? I asked calmly. Patricia slammed her hands on the table and shot to her feet, the chair screeching against the floor. You ungrateful old woman. We try to be accommodating. And this is how you repay us. Patricia. Marcus snapped at her. But his voice was weak, ineffectual. Emma suddenly pushed her bowl away. I'm finished, she said, then quickly left the table. That night, I lay in bed listening to the sounds of arguing from the master bedroom, my heart strangely calm. Tonight's confrontation had torn away the last pretense of warmth between us. In the middle of the night, there was a soft knock on my door. Grandma! It was Emma's voice. I opened the door. Emma stood there, her eyes red and swollen. They said they're going to send you to a nursing home. Don't worry. I stroked her hair gently. Grandma isn't going anywhere. But Grandma, Emma asked softly, Do you want to live with me? Emma nodded vigorously. Then Grandma has a plan, I said. I took a key from my drawer and handed it to her. This is the key to my mailbox. From now on, if any mail comes for me, you retrieve it. Don't let your parents see. Okay? Emma clutched the key tightly in her small fist. Grandma, I'll protect you. The next morning, I announced a decision. I've signed up for the Senior Center's autumn travel group. We're leaving next week for a 2-week trip to see the fall foliage in Vermont and New Hampshire. Marcus and Patricia exchanged glances, clearly caught off guard. Mom, your hip isn't completely healed yet, Marcus said hesitantly. The doctor said moderate activity aids recovery, I replied, eating my oatmeal calmly. Besides, Rosa is coming with me. It will be perfectly safe. But the expense. Patricia's eyes darted around nervously. I'll be using my own retirement savings, I said, setting down my bowl. You don't need to concern yourselves. I could see the calculations running through Patricia's mind. The old woman would be gone for 2 weeks, giving them free access to search the house. Maybe they could even find the deed. Well, have a wonderful trip, Patricia managed to force out a smile. After breakfast, I secretly passed Emma a folded note. This is Grandma's new cell phone number. Only you know it. Call me anytime if you need anything. Emma carefully tucked the note into the innermost pocket of her backpack, then gave me a small conspiratorial wink. On the day the tour group departed, Rosa helped me with my luggage and accompanied me all the way to the airport shuttle bus. Ma'am, are you certain you don't need me to come along? Rosa asked with genuine concern. I'm certain, I said, patting her hand reassuringly. It's more important that you keep watch over things at home for me. I deliberately chose a window seat and watched the familiar scenery fly past. This was my first time traveling alone in many, many years, and I felt an unexpected sense of freedom washing over me. There were about 25 seniors in the tour group, most traveling with a spouse or friend. Because of my hip, I was placed in the middle of the group under the special attention of our guide. The guide was an energetic young woman everyone called Amy. Mrs. Chun, you're traveling all alone? Aren't your family worried? Amy asked, chatting with me on the bus to Vermont. I informed them, I answered briefly, not wanting to discuss family matters. You're quite brave, Amy said sincerely. Many seniors are afraid to leave home without their children nearby. I smiled, but didn't tell her that sometimes the people who hurt you most aren't strangers out in the world, but the ones closest to you at home. The cobblestone streets in the historic towns weren't kind to my recovering hip, but I managed to keep pace with the group for most of the excursions. In the evenings, we stayed in charming bed and breakfasts. One particular evening, at a beautiful inn in the Berkshires, I decided to sit out on the porch while the others attended a local concert. The inn's porch had several comfortable wicker chairs. I settled into one, gazing at the distant mountains glowing golden in the sunset. Suddenly, a sharp pain shot through my left hip, and I couldn't suppress a small gasp. Do you need assistance? A gentle male voice came from behind me. I turned to see a distinguished gentleman with silver hair standing there, holding 2 steaming mugs. Thank you. It's just an old injury acting up, I said, trying to shift my leg into a more comfortable position. I'm Professor Chun, Robert Chen. I used to teach at the medical school, he said, offering me one of the mugs. May I examine your hip? I hesitated briefly, then rolled up my pant leg. Professor Chun knelt down and professionally assessed the area around my hip. The fracture is healing nicely, but these long walks are likely causing inflammation, he said. He produced a small tube of ointment from his jacket pocket. Try this. It's a formula I developed myself. The ointment felt wonderfully cool against my skin, and the pain began to subside almost immediately. Thank you so much, I said with genuine gratitude. Are you traveling alone as well? I am, Professor Chun said, settling into the wicker chair beside mine. My wife passed away last year. My children all live abroad now. We talked for hours about our careers, our interests, our lives. It turned out he'd been an orthopedic specialist before retiring, and now taught health and wellness classes at a senior center. He was witty and thoughtful. And before I knew it, I found myself laughing more freely than I had in years. For the next several days, Professor Chun became my unofficial travel companion. He helped carry my bags, offered professional advice when my hip bothered me. At one particularly scenic overlook that required a bit of walking, he insisted on renting a wheelchair and pushed me along the most difficult sections of the path himself. "What about your son?" he asked one day as we sat resting. "Why isn't he here with you?" I was silent for a moment, then briefly explained my situation at home. After listening, Professor Chun gently patted my hand. "Margaret, you're much stronger than I could ever be. Please, just call me Margaret," I said, feeling suddenly self-conscious. "Margaret," he said, looking at me with kind, serious eyes. "Sometimes fighting back isn't selfishness. It's self-preservation. It's self-respect." I nodded, feeling a tight knot in my chest loosening just slightly. On the final night of the trip, we attended a farewell dinner at a restaurant in Boston. Professor Chun quietly slipped me a piece of paper. "These are my contact details. Let's stay in touch when we return home." I took the paper and carefully placed it in my wallet. "Thank you for all your help these past days." "My pleasure entirely," he smiled warmly. "I hope to see you at the senior center sometime soon." On the flight home, I scrolled through the photos on my phone and realized I was smiling in nearly all of them. It was the first time since Richard's death that I felt that life still held color and possibility. Rosa picked me up at the airport, looking visibly flustered. "Ma'am, there's been a situation at home." "What happened?" My stomach dropped. "Your son and his wife. They turned the master bedroom completely upside down," Rosa whispered urgently. "They were searching for something." I let out a cold, knowing laugh. "The deed, I imagine." When I arrived home, the air was thick with the stale smell of cigarette smoke and alcohol. The living room was littered with empty takeout containers and beer cans. My embroidered sofa cushions were stained with something suspicious and unidentifiable. Marcus and Patricia clearly hadn't expected me back a day early. They came stumbling out of the master bedroom in a complete panic. "Mom, why are you back so soon?" Marcus stammered. "I grew tired of traveling," I said, surveying the disaster that was my living room. "Where's Emma?" "She's at a friend's house," Patricia said quickly, her eyes refusing to meet mine. Leaning heavily on my cane, I walked directly to the master bedroom. When I pushed open the door, the sight made my blood run cold. Every drawer had been pulled out. Clothes from the closet were thrown everywhere. Even the mattress had been flipped over. "What were you searching for?" I turned and asked them, my voice terrifyingly calm. "Nothing," Marcus stammered. Patricia suddenly straightened her spine defiantly. "The deed? So what if we were? This apartment is going to be ours eventually anyway." I slowly walked to the dresser and pulled open the bottom drawer where I used to keep my jewelry. As I expected, the gold necklace Richard gave me, my jade bracelet, the pair of pearl earrings, all gone. "Where is my jewelry?" I asked, my voice so calm it was almost eerie. Who took your jewelry?" Patricia's voice went high and shrill, but her eyes kept darting away. I didn't say another word. I took out my phone and dialed emergency services. "What are you doing?" Marcus asked in horror. "What does it look like?" I said calmly, "I'm calling the police. The house has been burglarized. Valuable jewelry has been stolen." "Mom!" Marcus rushed forward, trying to grab my phone. "Have you lost your mind?" I stepped back. The call had already connected. "Hello. I'd like to report a burglary." 20 minutes later, 2 police officers stood in my living room. Patricia's face had gone ashen. Marcus's forehead was beaded with sweat. "Ma'am, you're certain the jewelry was stolen?" the younger officer asked. "Absolutely certain," I nodded firmly. "I checked everything right before my trip. Now it's all missing." "What's the approximate value?" Around $25,000, I said, deliberately inflating the amount. Some pieces were antiques with significant sentimental value. The older officer turned to Marcus and Patricia. And who are you two? My son and daughter-in-law, I said. They were staying here while I was traveling. The officer's expression sharpened considerably. Did either of you see anyone suspicious entering or leaving the premises? No. Marcus stammered helplessly. Patricia suddenly broke down completely. I took it. But I didn't steal it. I'm her daughter-in-law. What's wrong with borrowing some jewelry? The officer looked at her sternly. Taking someone else's property without their permission constitutes theft. Mom! Marcus pleaded, turning to me desperately. Patricia was just confused. Please drop the charges. I looked at them both and said, enunciating each word clearly, give me back my belongings. All of them. Right now. Patricia ran into the master bedroom, crying, and returned moments later with my jewelry clutched in a shoebox. She slammed it onto the coffee table. Here. Take it. You miserable old miser. Ma'am. Please verify nothing is missing, the older officer advised calmly. I carefully examined each piece. The pearl earrings were missing. Patricia, gritting her teeth furiously, pulled the earrings from her pocket and threw them at me. Satisfied now? You hateful old woman. Watch your language, the younger officer barked sharply. In the end, at my request, the police didn't arrest Patricia, but they filed a detailed report and warned her explicitly that her actions were illegal and would be prosecuted severely if they occurred again. After the police left, the atmosphere in the house was colder than a winter grave. Marcus sat on the sofa without saying a single word. Patricia was in the bedroom throwing things and shouting. Emma was hiding in her room with the door locked tight. I slowly began tidying up the mess, feeling strangely profoundly calm. Tonight's confrontation had ripped away the last threadbare shred of warmth between us. Before going to sleep, Emma quietly came to my room. Grandma, were they looking for this? She pulled a brown document folder from her backpack. Inside, my condo deed. How did you get this? I asked, genuinely astonished. The other night, I heard Mom and Dad talking about stealing the deed to get it transferred somehow, Emma said proudly. So I took it from your drawer before they could find it. I've kept it hidden in my backpack this whole time. They searched everywhere, but they couldn't find it. I pulled my granddaughter into a tight embrace, tears finally streaming down my face. Good girl. Thank you, sweetheart. Thank you so much. That night, I slept more soundly than I had in months. In my dreams, there were no arguments, no betrayals, only golden sunlight on distant mountains, and the steady, comforting feel of Robert Chen's hands carefully pushing my wheelchair along a forest path. I had been considering the decision to sell the apartment for a long time now. 3 days after returning from my trip, I scheduled an appointment with a real estate agent, a young man named Kevin, to come appraise the property. I deliberately chose a weekday morning when Marcus and Patricia would both be at work. Ma'am, this condo has been maintained beautifully, Kevin said, walking through the living room with his measuring tape. Excellent layout. Great school district. This will sell quickly. I sat on the sofa, watching him jot numbers into his notebook. What do you estimate it could sell for? At current market rates. Kevin looked around carefully. Somewhere between $700,000 and $750,000. The figure was even higher than I'd anticipated. I did quick mental calculations. After paying off the small remaining mortgage, the rest would be enough to purchase a comfortable one-bedroom unit in a quality senior living community, with a substantial retirement fund left over. When are you thinking of listing? Kevin asked. As soon as possible, I said without hesitation. After Kevin left, I began sorting through my personal belongings. Photographs, letters, the books Richard had left behind. These were my true treasures. Not this condo filled with memories, but also saturated with so much pain. At 3 o'clock that afternoon, I called the sales office of a senior living community and scheduled a tour for the following day. Grandma, what are you doing? Emma asked, coming home from school and finding me organizing photo albums in the living room. Grandma is preparing to move, I said gently. Emma's eyes widened with alarm. Move? Where? A place with many other grandmas and grandpas, I said. I opened an album and pointed to an old photograph. Look. This was your grandfather when he was young. Very handsome. Wasn't he? Emma stared at the photo for a long time. Was Grandpa nice to Dad when he was little? Of course, I said, stroking the yellowed photograph tenderly. When your father was a boy, your grandfather rode him to school on his bicycle every single day, rain or shine. Emma was quiet for a moment. Then why is Dad? I didn't answer her question. I simply closed the album carefully. Emma, remember this. No matter what happens, Grandma will always love you. The next morning, I went to tour the senior living community by myself. The place exceeded all my expectations. Beautifully landscaped gardens, spacious and bright common areas, an on-site medical clinic, a well-stocked library, a fitness center, numerous other amenities. I immediately fell in love with a south-facing one-bedroom unit. The living room absolutely flooded with natural light. You have excellent taste, Mrs. Chun, the sales consultant said enthusiastically. This unit just became available last week. It's extremely popular. I'll take it, I said directly. After completing the reservation paperwork and putting down a deposit, I had lunch in the community dining hall. At the next table, a woman with beautiful silver hair was discussing an afternoon dance rehearsal with her friends. Are you new here? She asked me kindly. Not officially moved in yet, I replied with a smile. I've been here for 3 years now, the woman said warmly. It's infinitely more liberating than living with your children. There's a bridge game this afternoon. Would you like to come watch? I gladly accepted the invitation. The afternoon bridge game was lively and cheerful, with over 20 seniors split among several tables, their laughter filling the room. I was watching from the sidelines when an elderly gentleman warmly invited me to join a table. Margaret! A familiar voice came from behind me. I turned around, surprised to see Professor Chen standing there. Robert, what are you doing here? I live here, he said with a broad smile. I forgot to mention it last time. I moved in right after I retired. It's such a small world, I said, genuinely delighted. Robert introduced me to the other residents, and everyone warmly welcomed the newcomer. Before I realized it, I'd spent a wonderful afternoon there. On my way home, my phone rang. It was Marcus. Mom, where are you? His voice sounded agitated, almost panicked. The real estate agent called. He said you're selling the condo. That's correct. I've already signed the listing agreement, I said calmly. Have you lost your mind? Marcus was practically shouting now. This is our home. It's my house, I said evenly, and I have the right to do whatever I want with it. I hung up. A storm was waiting when I got home. Marcus and Patricia were in the living room, their faces like thunderclouds. Emma was hiding in her room with the door shut and locked. Mom, what is the meaning of this? Marcus confronted me immediately. Why are you selling the house? I want a change of environment, I said, placing my purse on the sofa and slowly sitting down. No, Patricia shrieked. This apartment is ours. Yours. I took the deed from my purse and slowly unfolded it. Read the name on this document. Marcus stared at the deed, his face turning from crimson to deathly pale. Mom, we can discuss this reasonably. There's nothing to discuss, I said, folding the deed back up. I've already put a deposit down on a place at a senior living community. I'm moving next week. A senior living community? Marcus looked as if he'd never heard the term before. You're going to a nursing home? It's a senior residential community, not a nursing home, I corrected him firmly. Patricia suddenly lunged at me, trying to grab my purse. Give me that deed. I was prepared and quickly moved the purse out of her reach. Patricia, have you forgotten the police warning? Marcus pulled Patricia back forcefully, then turned to face me. Mom, what do you want from us? It's simple, I said, looking my son directly in the eyes. I'm selling the apartment. You have 1 week to move out. I will give you $120,000 for a down payment on a smaller place of your own. $120,000? Patricia shrieked hysterically. This place is worth over $700,000. Legally, I said with perfect calm. I don't have to give you a single penny. Marcus sank onto the sofa, his head in his hands. Mom, why are you being so cruel to us? I took a deep breath. Marcus, do you remember the day I broke my hip? Do you remember what you heard Patricia say on that phone call? Marcus's head shot up, his face draining of all color. Don't answer her. Let her deal with it herself. We need that spare bedroom for my sister when she moves here. I repeated her exact words. And do you remember what you did? You hung up the phone. Marcus's lips trembled, but no sound came out. Is that true, Dad? Emma's voice suddenly came from the hallway. We hadn't noticed her emerge from her room. Emma. Go back to your room, Patricia snapped. No, Emma said, running into the middle of the living room, tears streaming down her young face. I heard you. I heard you talking about sending Grandma away. And I saw Mom steal Grandma's jewelry. What nonsense are you spouting? Patricia raised her hand to strike her. I quickly stepped between them, shielding Emma with my body. That's enough, I said loudly. Emma, come with me. I took Emma back to my room and closed the door, still able to hear Patricia's hysterics and Marcus's feeble attempts to calm her down outside. Emma collapsed into my arms, sobbing. Grandma, I don't want to live with them anymore, she choked out. I stroked her back gently. Don't be frightened. Grandma has everything planned. That night, the tension in the apartment was suffocating. Marcus and Patricia argued viciously in the master bedroom while Emma slept in my room. I sat by the bed, watching the moonlight outside, and made my final decision. At breakfast the next morning, I announced it. Emma will be moving to the senior community with me. There's an excellent school nearby. Absolutely not. Patricia objected immediately. You have 1 week to consider my offer, I said, completely unmoved. Either you accept my terms, or you receive nothing. Marcus ate his breakfast in complete silence, not saying a single word. The next few days were like the eerie calm before a hurricane strikes. Marcus left early and came home late every day. Patricia shot daggers at me with her eyes. Only Emma, after coming home from school each afternoon, would excitedly ask me what the senior community was like. On the 5th evening, Marcus knocked softly on my door. Mom, can we talk? He looked utterly exhausted. I let him in, and he sat heavily in the chair by the window. I agreed to your arrangement, Marcus said with obvious difficulty. But can Emma still live with us? Emma will decide for herself, I said firmly. Marcus was silent for a very long time. Then, he suddenly dropped to his knees on the floor. Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't help him up. I just looked out at the darkening night sky. Marcus, do you know what hurt me the most? It wasn't that you didn't take care of me. It's that you became someone I don't even recognize anymore. Marcus's shoulders shook with silent sobs. If your father were alive, I said softly, he would be so disappointed in you. That sentence seemed to be the final blow. Marcus collapsed completely, weeping uncontrollably on the floor. A week later, the moving company arrived. I didn't have much to take, and everything was packed quickly. Emma insisted on coming with me, and Marcus didn't object. Patricia stood by the door, watching with cold, hateful eyes. As I was leaving, she suddenly said, "You'll regret this decision." I didn't reply. I simply took Emma's hand, and we got into the car together. As the car pulled away from the building, I looked back one final time at the home where I'd lived for over 25 years. The sun shone on that familiar balcony where Richard's beloved orchids used to bloom. Grandma, are you sad? Emma asked softly. I stroked her hair. A little, perhaps. But mostly, I feel free. Life at the senior community was surprisingly, wonderfully pleasant. My room faced south and was always filled with warm sunshine. Emma transferred to the nearby school, which had a dedicated shuttle bus for morning pickup and afternoon drop-off. Professor Chun visited often, helping me get acquainted with all the community activities and introducing me to other residents. After the money from the apartment sale came through, I transferred $120,000 to Marcus as promised. The rest of the money I managed very carefully. Part went into a retirement fund, part into an educational trust for Emma, and a portion I set aside for something meaningful, something that mattered. As for the place I once called home, it was now firmly in the past, and the future, while uncertain in many ways, was at least entirely in my own hands. The first month at the senior community passed like a beautiful dream. I woke to sunshine streaming through my windows every morning, enjoyed delicious meals in the dining hall, had a full schedule of activities to choose from: choir practice, calligraphy classes, fitness sessions. I even enrolled in a computer course to learn video editing software, so I could organize and preserve my old photographs digitally. Emma adjusted remarkably quickly. The new school was better than her previous one, with more attentive teachers and smaller class sizes. Every day after school, she would come bursting through my door, excitedly telling me about her day. "Grandma, Mrs. Anderson said my essay writing has improved so much." Emma proudly showed me her composition notebook one evening. I put on my reading glasses and carefully read the essay titled, "The Person I Admire Most." She had written about me, from calling the ambulance myself after I fell, to bravely selling the apartment to start a new life. My eyes grew misty as I read. "Grandma, Mrs. Anderson said you're an extraordinary woman," Emma said, her eyes sparkling with pride. "Mrs. Anderson sounds like a wonderful teacher," I said with a warm smile, though a pang of sadness struck my heart. Marcus used to look at me with that same admiration when he was young. What had changed him so completely? The second month, I started writing my memoirs. From a young woman working at the garment factory, to becoming a floor supervisor. From meeting Richard on a blind date arranged by friends, to raising Marcus alone during those difficult years. Memories flooded back as I wrote. I often found tears streaming down my face. Professor Chun became my most devoted reader. Every Wednesday evening, he would come to my room, and I would read him the latest chapter. He would offer thoughtful feedback and encouragement. "Margaret, you should seriously consider getting this published," he said one evening with great sincerity. "This isn't just your personal story. It's the collective memory of an entire generation." "I'll think about it," I said, though I felt intimidated by the idea. I was just an ordinary person my whole life. How could someone like me write a book? "That's precisely what makes it valuable," Robert insisted. "History isn't just made by famous people. It's made by millions of ordinary people like you." Meanwhile, through my neighbor Mrs. Chun, I learned that Marcus's family was struggling. They had used the $120,000 down payment to purchase a small two-bedroom apartment, and the mortgage payments were crushing them financially. Patricia's sister Karen, furious about not getting the condo as promised, had a massive fight with Patricia and cut off all contact. What surprised me most was learning that Marcus had been demoted at work, from department manager down to a regular staff position. "I heard it was because of a major error on an important project," Mrs. Chun said over the phone, "but I don't know the specific details." After hanging up, I sat by my window, lost in thought. Marcus had always been such a diligent child, rarely making mistakes. Could this workplace failure be related to all the turmoil at home? That weekend, Emma went to visit her parents and returned looking dejected and sad. "Mom and Dad fought again," she told me quietly. "Dad doesn't talk at all anymore, and Mom just cries constantly." I hugged my granddaughter, my heart aching, not knowing what to say that could comfort her. The next day at the community center, I happened to run into an old friend of Professor Chen's, a retired psychology professor. After listening to my concerns about Marcus, she offered some insight. The relationship between adult children and their parents often reflects their own internal psychological state, the professor explained thoughtfully. "Your son's sense of self-worth may have been built entirely on the role of being a good son. When that role collapsed, his entire sense of identity was thrown into chaos." Her words gave me much to consider. Perhaps I had overemphasized filial duty in Marcus's upbringing, causing him to lose his sense of individual identity and autonomy. One late autumn afternoon, the community manager approached me. She mentioned that a middle-aged man had been lingering near the entrance for quite some time, asking which building Margaret Chen lived in. He wouldn't give his name, the manager described, but he appeared to be in his mid-40s, somewhat haggard-looking. I knew immediately who it was. But to my surprise, Marcus didn't actually come inside. He just stood at the gate for a while, then left. Should I go after him? The manager asked with concern. I shook my head slowly. No. That's all right. That night, I tossed and turned sleeplessly. Why had Marcus come? Why hadn't he come in? Was he in some kind of trouble? The next day, I tried calling his phone. It rang for a very long time, but no one answered. I sent a text message. You can come see me if you need to. No reply came. A week later, Mrs. Chun called with shocking news. Marcus and Patricia were filing for divorce. I hear it's been extremely contentious, Mrs. Chun sighed heavily. Marcus is insisting on it, but Patricia refuses and has been causing scenes at his workplace. The news genuinely shocked me. Although I strongly disliked Patricia, I had never wished for them to divorce. I tried contacting Marcus again, but still received no response whatsoever. On the first weekend of November, Emma went to visit her parents as usual, but came back much earlier than expected, her eyes red and swollen from crying. Dad wasn't home, she sobbed into my shoulder. Mom said he moved out completely. I held Emma close, gently patting her back, just as I used to comfort Marcus when he was a small child. That moment, I realized something profound. No matter what Marcus had done, he was still my son, and my heart still ached for him. The next day, I made an important decision. I asked the community center staff to help me contact a family therapist, and I scheduled an appointment for the following week. What issue would you like to address? The therapist asked over the phone. I want to learn how to forgive, I replied honestly, and I hope to be forgiven as well. The therapist was silent for a moment. That's a very good place to start, she said gently. The day before my therapy appointment, the community held its annual talent show. I sang lead in the choir's performance of Amazing Grace. Dressed in a pale blue dress, standing under the warm spotlight, I felt genuinely nervous. The music began. I took a deep breath and started to sing. As I reached the second verse, I glanced out at the audience and saw a familiar figure sitting alone in the very last row. Marcus. He was wearing a rumpled suit, sitting by himself, his gaze fixed intently on the stage. My voice trembled slightly, but I quickly regained my composure and finished the song. After the performance ended, I looked toward the back row, but Marcus was gone. That man in the last row. When did he leave? I asked a staff member. He left right after your song ended, the staff member replied. He seemed to be in quite a hurry. I think he was crying. I stood there, suddenly understanding everything. Marcus didn't want to see me face to face, because he was afraid to. The shame and guilt he carried were probably deeper and more painful than I had ever imagined. During the reception after the show, I walked out to the community garden alone. The autumn wind rustled through fallen leaves scattered across the pathways. I sat on a wooden bench, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. After some time, a figure slowly approached and sat down beside me. Mom, Marcus said, his voice low and hoarse. I didn't turn to look at him, just kept gazing ahead. Did you enjoy the performance? I did, he paused. You sang beautifully, just like when you used to sing me to sleep when I was little. My eyes filled with tears. I had often sung that very song to Marcus when he was a boy. Why were you afraid to see me? I asked softly. Marcus lowered his head. I was ashamed. I'm so sorry. Mom, do you know what hurt the most? I said, still watching the fading sunset. It wasn't that you didn't take care of me. It was that you became someone even you couldn't respect. Marcus's shoulders began shaking. Mom, I was wrong. I truly know I was wrong. Wrong about what? Wrong for treating you like a burden. Wrong for letting Patricia bully you. Wrong for forgetting who I was supposed to be. His voice cracked completely. Wrong for thinking money was the most important thing. Wrong for breaking your heart. Marcus finally broke down completely, sobbing like a lost child. Mom, can you ever forgive me? I turned to look at the man I had once loved with my entire heart, now with tears streaming down his face, looking utterly lost and broken. Forgiveness takes time, I said gently, but we can start over. Marcus looked up, a tiny spark of hope flickering in his eyes. Really? Do you mean it? Really, I nodded. But on one condition. What condition? You have to forgive yourself first, I said, taking his hand in mine. And then, you need to find that sun I was always so proud of. The last rays of sunset surrounded us both, stretching our shadows long across the garden path. In the distance, I could see Emma running toward you, holding up a drawing, excitedly shouting something I couldn't quite hear yet. That moment, I understood something important. The pain would never completely disappear. The scars would always remain. But love could grow again. Just like the flowers in this garden. They wither and die in winter, but sprout fresh and new again every spring. Marcus started visiting me every single week after that evening. At first, the visits were awkward and brief. He would sit stiffly in my small living room, sipping tea, making uncomfortable small talk. Gradually, though, he began to relax. He started sharing his troubles at work, the small details of his daily life. The new director at my company is impossible to work with, Marcus complained one Sunday afternoon. He's constantly finding fault with everything I do. Why you specifically? I asked. Marcus was silent for a moment. Probably because I took too much time off before, dealing with Patricia's sister's demands, and I made several serious mistakes on important projects. I didn't say, I told you so. Instead I asked, so what are you planning to do about it? I want to quit, Marcus sighed heavily. But I'm terrified I won't find another decent job. Do you remember what your father used to say? I asked, handing him a freshly baked cookie from a batch I'd made that morning. A rolling stone gathers no moss. Marcus took the cookie, looking thoughtful. Mom, what do you think I should do? I'm not you. I can't make that decision for you, I said softly. But whatever you choose, as long as you put your whole heart into it, I will support you. Marcus looked up at me, and for the first time in months, I saw that familiar sparkle return to his eyes. Thanks, Mom. In early December, Marcus told me his divorce from Patricia had been finalized. She insisted on keeping the apartment, Marcus said with a sad, ironic smile. I agreed. I didn't want to live there anymore anyway. So where are you living now? I rented a small studio apartment near my office, Marcus said, taking a sip of tea. It's convenient for work. Does Emma know? She does. Marcus's expression softened noticeably. She said she wants to live with me, but I think it's better for her to stay with you for now, at least until I get my life properly back on track. I nodded approvingly. You're always welcome here. You know that. Before Christmas arrived, the community organized a charity craft fair to raise money for underprivileged children in the area. I knitted a batch of coasters and placemats, and Professor Chun helped me set up an attractive display at my booth. Mrs. Chun, your craftsmanship is absolutely amazing, a community staff member said admiringly. Something I learned at the garment factory when I was young, I explained with a modest smile. I haven't done it in decades, so I'm quite rusty. On the day of the fair, Marcus came with Emma, and he even helped me interact with customers and handle sales. Watching him engage so warmly with the other residents, smiling genuinely, I could hardly recognize the sullen, defeated man from just a few months earlier. Mom, your items are almost completely sold out, Marcus ran over to report excitedly. Professor Chun says you should raise the prices. No need for that, I shook my head. It's all for charity after all. After the event concluded, the three of us had dinner together in the community dining hall. Emma chattered enthusiastically about her school's upcoming Christmas party. Marcus chimed in with questions and comments. The atmosphere felt warm and relaxed, almost normal. Mom! Marcus hesitated as he was preparing to leave. Can I come spend New Year's with you? Of course you can, I said, patting his arm affectionately. This is your home too. On New Year's Day, Marcus arrived early in the morning, his arms loaded with grocery bags. I bought ingredients, he said excitedly. I'm cooking today. I looked at him in genuine surprise. You know how to cook now? I've learned a few simple dishes, Marcus said with an embarrassed smile. Living alone, I can't survive on takeout every day. Watching his busy figure moving around in my small kitchen, I was suddenly reminded of my late husband Richard. He used to insist on cooking for special occasions too. The dinner was a success. Although some dishes were slightly too salty, Emma and I savored every single bite. After dinner, we watched television and chatted, just like any normal three-generation family. Mom, Marcus said suddenly, I quit my job. Are you certain that was the right decision? Yes, he nodded firmly. I want to start completely over. Find work I'm genuinely passionate about. Do you have any specific plans? I majored in design in college. Marcus's eyes lit up with enthusiasm. Even though I've been in management all these years, I never stopped sketching and drawing. I want to try my hand at interior design. That's wonderful, I said encouragingly. It's never too late to pursue your dreams. Marcus looked at me with deep gratitude. Thanks, Mom. If it weren't for your support. Silly boy, I interrupted gently. I'm your mother. That's what mothers do. In January, Marcus enrolled in an intensive interior design certification course and started taking on small freelance projects online to build his portfolio. His income was unstable and unpredictable, but he was energized and motivated every single day. Even Emma commented that her father seemed younger somehow. At the same time, with Professor Chen's persistent help and encouragement, my memoir found a small independent publisher willing to take it on. The editor suggested I add more photographs and specific historical details. So I began another intensive round of revisions. Margaret, this section about the technological innovations at the garment factory is absolutely fascinating, Professor Chen said one afternoon, reading through my latest chapter. This kind of first-hand historical account is invaluable. It's just old stories, I said, feeling self-conscious. Nothing particularly special. On the contrary, Professor Chen said with complete seriousness, it's these memories of ordinary people that constitute the truest and most authentic history. One day in February, Marcus called me, his voice bursting with excitement. Mom, I landed a significant project. The complete design for a new independent coffee shop. That's fantastic. I was genuinely thrilled for him. When do you start? I'm taking measurements tomorrow, Marcus said, his enthusiasm practically vibrating through the phone. The owner said if this goes well, he'll recommend me to all his business contacts. The coffee shop project was a tremendous success. The owner was absolutely delighted, and true to his word, he recommended Marcus to several friends and colleagues. By March, Marcus was so busy with projects that he was seriously considering renting a small office space and officially establishing his own design studio. Mom, I need a favor, Marcus said somewhat mysteriously one evening. I have a meeting with a very important potential client next week. Could you lend me some money to buy a proper suit? I looked at the slightly worn suit he was wearing and nodded immediately. We'll go shopping tomorrow. The next day, I took Marcus to the finest department store in the city. We bought him 2 high-quality suits, along with new shirts, ties, and shoes. Mom, this is far too expensive, Marcus said, looking anxiously at the receipt. Consider it an investment, I said simply. First impressions matter tremendously in business. In April, Marcus's design studio officially opened for business. Although he was the only employee, projects were coming in steadily. He moved out of his cramped studio apartment and rented a comfortable one-bedroom, making absolutely certain to set up a proper room for Emma's visits. Once the studio is more financially stable, I'm thinking of getting a mortgage for a small house. Marcus shared his plans with me one afternoon. I'll save for the down payment entirely myself. I won't use your money again. Mom, I'm so proud of you, son, I said with complete sincerity. Those simple words seemed to touch something deep inside him. He was silent for a moment, then suddenly said, Mom, about the day you broke your hip. It's in the past, I interrupted him softly. Let's both look forward now. All right, Marcus nodded, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. Okay. In May, my memoir titled Threads of Memory, A Millworker's Life was officially published. The publisher held a small but meaningful launch event at the community center. Several local media outlets attended, along with many interested readers. Marcus and Emma sat proudly in the front row, watching me being interviewed. Mrs. Chun, what was your initial motivation for writing this book? A reporter asked. I looked at Marcus and Emma sitting in the audience. At first, I simply wanted to record my own story, but as I wrote, I realized these memories don't just belong to me, they belong to my family, and to all the ordinary people of that era. I hope this book can help younger generations understand how their parents and grandparents lived, and I hope it helps people of my own generation find connection and meaning. After the event, Marcus hugged me tightly, tears streaming down his face. Mom, you're amazing, truly amazing. Every ordinary person has a story worth telling, I said, patting his back. You have your own story too. It just hasn't been written yet. As summer arrived, Marcus shared some wonderful news. He was in a relationship. Her name is Sarah. She's Emma's teacher actually, he said, looking slightly shy. We met at a parent-teacher conference. She's a single mother. Her son Michael is in Emma's class. What do you like about her? I asked. Marcus thought carefully. She's genuine, not materialistic at all, and she's incredibly patient and kind with children. He paused meaningfully. Most importantly, she makes me want to be a better man every single day. That sentence warmed my heart completely. That's what real love should be. In July, Marcus brought Sarah and her son Michael to visit the community. Sarah was gentle and elegant, soft-spoken but with a clear sense of self and dignity. Her son Michael was lively and adorable, and he and Emma became instant friends, watching the two children chase each other around the garden. With Marcus and Sarah standing side by side talking and laughing, I suddenly felt that life had given me an unexpected and precious gift. A second chance. A chance to see my son rediscover himself and start truly living again. That evening, after saying goodbye to Sarah and Michael, Marcus came back to see me. Mom, he said, sitting across from me with an unusually serious expression. I want to propose to Sarah. Do you think it's a good idea? Do you love her? I asked simply. I do. Very much. Are you ready to take on the responsibility of a family? Not just financially, but emotionally. Marcus thought for a long moment. I think so. This time, I want to do everything right. Everything. Then you have my complete blessing, I said with a warm smile. Marcus squeezed my hand tightly. Thanks, Mom. Thank you for giving me a second chance. Everyone deserves a second chance, I said softly, including me. I had given myself a second chance to redefine my later years, to rebuild my relationship with my son, to rediscover my own worth and dignity. The process hadn't been easy, but it had been worth every tear, every moment of pain. Shortly after Marcus and Sarah got engaged in early August, my old hip injury flared up unexpectedly. It happened at the community's summer festival. I had been on my feet all day, and by evening my left hip was in excruciating pain. The community doctor examined me and said it was likely inflammation. He strongly advised me to go to the hospital for comprehensive tests. I'm on my way right now, Marcus said anxiously over the phone. Don't rush, I said, trying to hide the pain in my voice. Rosa can take me. After extensive testing at the hospital, the doctor studied my x-rays with a concerned frown. Mrs. Chun, you have a minor stress fracture at the site of your previous injury. You need at least 2 weeks of complete bed rest. Is it that serious? I was genuinely surprised. Fractures heal very slowly in seniors. the doctor said sternly. You didn't allow it to heal properly last time. This time, you absolutely must follow my instructions. When I returned to the community, Marcus was waiting anxiously at the entrance. Seeing me being pushed in a wheelchair, his face went pale. Mom, what happened? He rushed over and took my hand. It's nothing serious. Just need a bit of rest and I'll be fine, I said, patting his hand reassuringly. The doctor is being overly cautious. Marcus insisted on taking time off work to care for me, but I refused firmly. Your studio is just getting established. Don't jeopardize that. The community has excellent caregivers, and Emma can help. But, no buts, I said with finality. I can manage perfectly well. Marcus couldn't argue with me, so he finally agreed to visit every single day after work instead. When Sarah heard what happened, she immediately offered to have Emma stay at her place temporarily. Don't worry about anything, Margaret, Sarah said gently but firmly. Emma and Michael are best friends. It'll be like an extended sleepover for them. The days of bed rest were challenging. Despite the excellent care at the community, being confined to bed all day was deeply frustrating. I started worrying. What if my hip never fully healed? What if I couldn't live independently anymore? One rainy afternoon, as I was looking through old photograph albums, Marcus suddenly appeared, completely soaked. What are you doing here at this hour? I asked in surprise. Didn't you have an important client meeting? It was rescheduled, Marcus said, wiping rain from his face. I wanted to check on you. He sat beside my bed, clearly wanting to say something important. What is it? I closed the album. Mom. Marcus took a deep breath. I need to talk to you about something. What's so serious? It's about money. My heart sank slightly. Was Marcus in financial trouble again? You know I still have money remaining from selling the apartment, I said carefully. If you need. No. That's not it at all, Marcus shook his head quickly. I'm not here to ask for money. On the contrary. He took an envelope from his briefcase. This is for you. I opened the envelope, confused. Inside was a bank book showing a balance of $25,000. This is the first installment, Marcus explained earnestly. The $120,000 you gave me for the down payment. I'm going to pay it all back. Bit by bit. I stared at him, completely stunned. Marcus, I never said you had to repay it. I know, Marcus said with absolute seriousness, but I want to. That money, it makes me feel like a parasite. I don't want to be that person ever again. Looking at his determined, sincere eyes, I suddenly understood. For Marcus, repaying this money wasn't just a financial transaction. It was a psychological one. He needed to do this to rebuild his self-respect and dignity. All right, I nodded, accepting the bank book. I'll hold on to this for you. Marcus smiled, looking visibly relieved. Then he took another small box from his bag. And this is also for you. Inside was a brand new smartphone with advanced features. My old phone still works fine, I protested. This one has special health monitoring capabilities, Marcus explained excitedly. It can track your heart rate, blood pressure, and it has a one-touch emergency call button. This way, I can always know how you're doing, even when I'm not here. My eyes filled with tears. This must have been expensive. I bought it with the bonus from my first major independent project, Marcus said proudly. I saved it specifically for you. 2 weeks later, the doctor finally gave me permission for limited activity. Marcus took half a day off work to accompany me to my follow-up appointment. The healing is progressing excellently, the doctor said, examining the new x-rays. But you still need to avoid standing for prolonged periods and strenuous exercise. On the way home, Marcus supported me so carefully, as if I were made of the most delicate glass. Don't be so nervous, I laughed. I'm not going to break. Mom, Marcus said suddenly, I want to ask you something important. What is it? Sarah and I are planning to get married next spring. After the wedding, we'd like you to come live with us. I stopped walking, looking at him in genuine surprise. What? I know you're happy here, Marcus quickly explained. But if you lived with us, Sarah and I could take better care of you. And Emma wants us all to be together as one family. I looked at my son's sincere, hopeful eyes. A complex mixture of emotions swirled inside me. A year ago, he wanted to force me out of my home. Now, he wanted to bring me into his. What an incredible transformation. Marcus, I said gently, I'm deeply touched, but I want to continue living here. But your hip. My hip will heal completely, I said firmly. I have so many friends here. Plenty of activities. Excellent medical care right on site. I don't want to be a burden to you and Sarah. How could you ever be a burden? Marcus said emotionally. I know you mean well. I patted his hand. But I need my own independent space. Just as you need your own family life. How about this? I can come stay with you on weekends and holidays. We'll keep in close touch. And if the time ever comes when I truly need constant care, we can discuss it then. Okay. Marcus was silent for a moment, then finally nodded. All right. But you have to promise me. If you feel even slightly unwell, you'll tell me immediately. I promise. Back in my room, as Marcus was helping me organize some things, he happened to notice my bank passbook on the nightstand. Mom, he exclaimed. You have this much saved? I smiled. It's from the apartment sale. After giving you your portion and paying for my place here, there's still quite a bit remaining. But you live so frugally. Old habits, I shrugged. I have other plans for this money. What kind of plans? I gestured for him to sit down. I'm planning to establish a foundation to provide legal aid for elderly people who have been abused or abandoned by their children. Marcus's face changed dramatically. Mom, is this because of me? Not entirely, I shook my head. Living here, I've heard far too many heartbreaking stories. Some seniors are tricked out of their property by their own children. Some are literally kicked out of their homes. Most of them don't understand the law and feel completely powerless to fight back. I want to help them. Marcus lowered his head, his voice thick with emotion. I was such a monster to you. Let the past remain in the past, I said softly. What matters is that you've become a better person now. That means more to me than anything else in this world. Marcus suddenly knelt before me, tears streaming freely down his face. Mom, I swear on my life, I will never let you down again. Never. I stroked his hair tenderly, just as I used to when he was a small boy. I know, son. I know. At that profound moment, I felt a deep peace I had never experienced before. Not because the pain had disappeared completely, but because the pain had finally been understood, acknowledged, and accepted. Not because life was perfect, but because even in its imperfection, love and hope could still flourish and grow. The story didn't end there. Life continued. Marcus and Sarah married the following spring in a beautiful, simple ceremony. My legal aid foundation was successfully established and began helping vulnerable seniors. Emma continued to thrive. Professor Chan and I grew closer, developing a deep and meaningful friendship. And I continued discovering new possibilities for my life. Teaching classes at the senior center, volunteering at the children's hospital, writing more stories. Each day brought new experiences, new connections, new reasons to be grateful. Because I had learned the most important lesson of all, that it's never too late. Never too late to start over. Never too late to heal. Never too late to forgive. And never too late to live the life you truly deserve.